You'll see that Jesus has just fed 5,000 people. Actually, it's more than that. He's fed like 15,000 because they probably had their wives and children with them. So Jesus has just had this mountaintop experience. Come to church, you have a mountaintop experience. Man, it was so great to be at church. And then as soon as you go out, you got a flat tire. As soon as you go out, right, something happens at home. And you're just thinking, what in the world? These guys, they just saw Jesus do this miracle. And now Jesus is actually the one who sent them out on the ocean or out on the sea. And they go, and everything is great until they get to the middle. When they get to the middle, it's the same distance to go to the other side as it is to turn back. Y'all ever thought that you just stuck somewhere and it's like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? Look at what it says. It says, for the wind was contrary, and in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. When the disciples saw him walking on the sea, it goes on, and it says they cried out in fear. But this is what I want you to understand from this passage here. There's another passage where it says they were straining at the oars. They were tossed and turned everywhere. They were doing all that they could, and yet the wind was contrary to them. Everything was contrary to them. So we live in a world right now where if you haven't noticed, everything's going to be contrary to what you believe about God. Winds are changing. Waves are coming. You're going to be straining at the oar, and you're going to have all kinds of fears and doubts and worries. There's all kinds of things that can crowd into your mind. Questions about, well, do I really take a stand? Do I really say something? Should I really be faithful to God? And here these disciples, they're out in the middle of the sea, and they are straining against the oar, and you know who's not in the boat with them? Jesus. Ever felt like, where is he now? Why is this happening to me now? I mean, Jesus, you just did a miracle. Why would you send us out into the middle of this sea? Listen, these guys were fishermen. They knew how to read the weather too. They didn't expect storm. If they had expected a storm, they probably would have said, Jesus, the weather's not looking that good. The wind seems to be picking up. We shouldn't go out. No, when they went out in obedience, but they went out not expecting anything to go wrong. How many times do you get up on a Monday morning and, man, you're not expecting anything to go wrong? You think, it's going to be a good week, right? We just had a great week at church. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to start this week out, man, and I'm going to be chasing after Jesus. And you get to work, and you clock in, and it's like everything just goes haywire. And you're thinking, what has just happened? You get that phone call. Now you're straining against the wind. Now you're tossed to and fro. You're wondering, what am I going to do next? See, fear often comes from what seems contrary to what we perceive as reality. That we think, hey, this is supposed to be my reality, right? That yes, God is with me, God is for me, and yet it seems like, wow, it doesn't feel like God is for me, doesn't feel like God is with me. This is not the reality I want to be in right now. So what fear does is that it comes in, and it changes your perspective about what's really real. Let me remind you that what you see around you, even though it is material, even though it is real, it is not the only thing that's real. There is a spiritual battle going on. There are things happening that we can't see. There are things that are going on. There are forces at work that are against you, that are contrary to you. They're trying to keep you from accomplishing all that God wants for you. So let me remind you that your perception is not always an accurate picture of reality. This is why we have to change our direction sometimes. Instead of just looking around, what do we need to do? We need to look up. Don't just look around, because listen, they could look around and they could see the wind, or they couldn't see the wind. They could see the effects of the wind. They could see the waves. They could see all this stuff, and everything they were seeing around them was bad. But let me remind you that most of the things that we worry about never happen. Most of the things that are going through your mind at night, right, it never happens. The things that you lay awake at night and you wrestle with and you struggle with, it's like, why are you worried about that? Some of you in this room are worst case scenario people. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand because you think something bad's going to happen. But you're worst case scenario people, and you think, oh, you know what? It's just going to get worse. If you were honest, you could go back and look at your life and you could see all the things you worried about. And you know what? Somehow, miraculously, God has come through. Somehow, miraculously, God has come through and done something you didn't expect. Amen? Because He's faithful like that. See, there's a different reality. We can move from true freedom when we understand that things are contrary because there is a different reality. We have God. And God is in control of the wind and the waves. God is in control of all things. We heard it this morning in our prayer time, Psalm 139, right? He is omnipotent, which means He is all-powerful. This God is all-powerful. He's also omniscient. That means he sees all things. That means he's aware of your situation. That regardless of what storm you're in, he sees you. He knows what's going on in your life. But he's also omnipresent. This is what the disciples were a little concerned about, because they were like, well, where is Jesus? He's not here in the boat. Other passages tell us that Jesus was up on a mountain by himself praying. I believe he was praying for them. I believe he was praying for them. He was probably praying that their faith would not fail. He was probably praying that they would persevere, that they would trust, that they would know that he loved them. In fact, another passage tells us that when Jesus went walking on the water, that he was walking and he intended to pass them by. Can you imagine that? That they're in the middle of a storm. And Jesus was going to just walk on by, go on to the other side and say, hey guys, I'll see you over there. That he intended to pass them by. Why would he intend to pass them by except that he prayed for them? Except that he was like, look, you can trust. You can keep trusting. In the wind and the waves, you can keep trusting, but it's a choice you have to make. You have to choose trust. You can choose fear. You have to choose to believe, or you can choose unbelief. So they're in the middle of this storm. Crying out, but are they crying out to him? Let me just tell you that many times you might be crying out at night in your bed, but you're not crying out to him. You're looking to yourself. You're looking to someone else trying to give you an answer for a problem that you can't fix and nobody else can either, but he can. You see, there's a different reality, and we've got to understand that Jesus is probably praying for them, and as he's coming towards them, I think this is interesting too, that as he's coming towards them, what did they say? What did they do? Y'all know the story? Matthew 14, right? It says they cried out in fear. In fear, they said what? It's a ghost. It's a ghost. Ever felt like if it couldn't get any worse and then it does get worse? That's what they're thinking. They're thinking, what are we going to do now? It's a ghost. This ghost is coming to take us away. It's over. Just throw all the oars into the water, guys. Just stop right now. He's coming to get us. It's a ghost. Wouldn't you think that the people who should recognize him would be the disciples? They didn't recognize him. How many times has God been moving toward you and you not recognized him? How many times have you said, God's not there? And listen, he's there. He's there. In fact, I want you to know this morning that God's moving toward you today. You got to make a decision. Are you going to cry out to him, or are you going to cry out in fear? You see, sometimes the only time for us to truly know who God is in the difficult time. I think about when we sang, it was part of that song, one of those songs that we sang this morning, He's the Fourth Man in the Fire. When Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego got thrown into that fire, what was so interesting to me in that story? One of the things they said, we don't have to answer you, O king. We don't need to give you an answer in this matter. They said, and if our God doesn't deliver us from this fire, he's going to deliver us from your hand, O king. They're like, one way or another, we're done with you. This infuriated King Nebuchadnezzar, and he threw them into the fire. These young men took a stand, not in fear, but in faith. And when they were thrown into that fire, there was a fourth one in the midst of that fire. Yeah, I believe that was Jesus. Jesus was in that fire with them. Now, what I want you to understand this morning is that he is in the fire with you. He's in the storm with you. You are not alone, even though you may feel alone. You may feel like nobody understands what's going on inside of me. Well, there is somebody who does. And his name is Jesus. He is the one who put you together. He knows you inside and out. He knows you better than you know yourself. Isn't that amazing? The older I get, I feel like, man, I don't think I know myself at all. Like, man, I thought what in the world's going on with me, right? What you need to understand this morning is when you place your faith in God, you automatically gain an enemy. This enemy is seeking to limit all that God wants to do in your life. And if he can limit you by causing you to have fear, if he can limit you by dragging you to unbelief, for a lot of people, it's just being afraid of something. Being afraid of the unknown, being afraid of the future, being afraid of the failure that might come. It's like, if I take this step, if I do this, then what's going to happen? I don't know. And that's the problem, is we feel like we have to know. I gotta know. No, you just need to know the one who does.